Good evening, Mr. Viss. Welcome to the show.
Is this Jaspreet?
Yes, it is Jaspreet.
Nice to hear you today. Have I been on your show before?
No, we are talking for the first time, but I'm very glad you called in.
Oh, well, my pleasure. I look forward to it. Is it a live interview with you and me, or is there calls coming in?
No, it is a live interview between you and me.
Perfect.
And I'm sorry if there was a no interaction beforehand regarding this. My apologies for that. Okay.
It's all good. It's busy time.
Yes, it is. Let's begin. So you are the incumbent candidate of this riding, right?
Yes, indeed.
Yes. Would you like to highlight some of your achievements?
Yeah. So I am Brad Viss. I'm the candidate for Mission Matsqui Fraser Canyon, the number one riding in all of Canada. And the biggest thing that I got done from an infrastructure perspective was getting the Mission sewer crossing completed. This was the number one issue raised in the last election. I promised to get it done, and I delivered in under 2 years. Many people listening on the show may also remember that I was the first Gora and first MP in Canada to substantively raise the issue of the farmer protests in Punjab and Haryana. I spoke on this more than any MP in all of the country because I am an MP who always listens to his constituents, who's there to take their calls, who lives beside them and stands beside them when they bring issues forward.
Okay, Mr. Bradvis, warnings about the future of the planet continue to be made by environmental scientists. There's no denying the fact that climate change is real. Does your party has any plan? Is there any way that you're going to address this climate change issue?
We have put forward the most comprehensive climate change program and plan of any opposition party in the history of Canada. I'll touch upon one aspect of it because it relates to my riding specifically.
Okay.
You might remember, Jaspreet, earlier on June 29th that the village of Lytton burned to the ground.
Yes, I just mentioned
There have been massive forest fires throughout Mission Matsqui Fraser Canyon. And it became very clear to me after speaking with many of my Indigenous constituents that we have to do more to address forest fires. And from a climate change perspective, there is much more we can be doing for natural climate change solutions. So that means active forest management, conservation, ecological restoration, to make sure that we're even prescribed burns. There are so many things that we can do right in our own backyard to address the impact of climate change, both in our forests and along the Fraser River, where we need to protect our wild salmon stocks.
Mr. Viss, you have a noticeable number of farmers living in your riding. How do you plan to raise their voice if you get elected?
Well, one of the big things that I can highlight from the Conservative platform is a commitment to a national food security policy. It became very clear during COVID-19 that we need to look more closely about what we produce in Canada and what we consume. The Conservative Party wants to make sure that more Canadians can access more locally grown food, and that's probably more relevant than any other riding in Canada because, again, Mission Matsqui Fraser Canyon has some of the highest farm gate sales of any area or jurisdiction in the entire country. My blueberry producers have raised a number of issues related to pricing and price fixing. We're committed to looking at that problem in our platform, and we're also committed to looking at the labor shortages which impact our ability to harvest the crops as well. When it comes to agriculture, there's no other party that's put forward near the number of programs and ideas that the Conservative Party has.
And you also have multi-generational families living in your riding. Do you have a plan to support the seniors of the community in a better way?
Yes, we do actually. There are so many seniors, and I live in a multi-generational household right now too. My mother-in-law lives with us for part of the year, and she's over 70. And I know in the Punjabi community especially, there's many elders living in homes with their children and grandchildren.
Yes.
And the care of those parents falls upon their children. The Conservative Party wants to create an allowance of $200 a month for each parent to help them with their day-to-day care and to cover some of those costs.
Okay.
We also have a program to increase the disability program for Canadians that are not able to work because of a disability, and other tax breaks to extend the medical caregiver tax breaks to more family members and up to $10,000 per individual. I heard loud and clear that we need to create flexible programs for multi-generational families, and that's exactly what's in our plan to secure the future for Canada.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Bradvis, also housing crisis is number one issue, I would say, in these elections, right? So what would you do to handle this crisis? Like, is there a specific plan? Because you know what? Political experts are saying that parties are putting forward plans. Parties are including the housing crisis thing in their platforms. But there's no concrete plan presented by any party. What would you have to say about that?
Well, I think that the plan that I put forward as the housing critic for the Conservative Party of Canada covers a lot of the big things that we need to do. And the first thing that we need to address is the rate at which we approve new builds in Canada. Of all developed nations, Canada is the least competitive or the least productive at building new homes. We have to get construction going. So our plan promises to increase supply by building 1 million homes in the next 3 years. One of the big things I also hear about in Vancouver and the Fraser Valley is the impact of foreign buyers and how in some communities they've increased the prices. So we're saying if you're not a new if you're just buying a house in Canada, to have it, but you're living in another country, we're going to stop that. We need new homes for new immigrants, permanent residents, and Canadian citizens first. Our plan also has a big emphasis on mental health and addictions, which is intimately tied to housing, and we're committing to build 50 new treatment centers across Canada with additional supports to help people overcome things like the opioid crisis. And we also, for Indigenous people, have a plan, a for Indigenous, by Indigenous commitment to empower our First Nations to take control of their own unique housing needs. And finally, we need to address mortgages and the national housing strategy. The parliamentary budget officer came out just on August 10th and said that the Liberals, although they're great at making announcements, have only implemented 50% of the funding that they announced since the plan started. That's unacceptable when housing prices are going out of reach for the average Canadian family. We need that money to support cooperatives, purpose-built rental construction, and other housing programs across this country to give people a meaningful chance to own their own home.
Mr. Bradvis, would you like to say anything in closing? Would you like to share your vision for your riding with us?
Yeah, well, Mission Matsqui-Fraser Canyon is 22,000 square kilometers of ruggedness. It expands from Abbotsford all the way up to the Bridge River Valley north of Lillooet. There is no riding in Canada that is as beautiful and diverse as this one. So my commitment to all the constituents in Mission Matsqui-Fraser Canyon is to continue to be present, to hear your concerns, to live alongside you, and to walk alongside you, and to address the major things that you're thinking about, and that's protecting the Fraser River and addressing the issues of climate change and the environment, taking meaningful action to address the housing crisis and the gang activity problems that we know exist but we know we can improve upon. But most importantly, having the back of every single person when they need my help. That's the number one thing an MP is there to do, is to represent and to serve as constituents, and my commitment to the voters of Mission Matsqui-Fraser Canyon is to continue to do that for you.
It was a pleasure talking to you, and all the best for your campaign. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Jaspreet. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you.